how did we define success? To the extent that you achieved the purpose, you were successful. So then we asked the question, well, what is the purpose? What is the purpose of life? Because if I want to live a successful life, I got to know what the purpose of life is. And we gave a secular answer that everyone basically would agree with, and that was two things. What are they?
Improving yourself and improving the world.
Oh my goodness, someone's listening here. Fine. You're going to improve yourself and you're going to improve the world. Improve yourself and improve the world. And we said through improving yourself and improving the world, then you would have a fulfilling and happy life. Happiness doesn't come from trying to manipulate external circumstances to meet all your expectations. In fact, that's what takes away happiness, because that can never be. And we said rather we got to focus on our internal world, because our thoughts and our emotion create our experience of reality. So if we can control our thoughts and emotions, we're going to have a good life. Okay. So this week, we're going to start looking a little bit deeper into those ideas. When we say improve yourself, you've got to improve yourself. What does that actually mean? What does it mean to improve yourself? What is yourself? What is this self that you speak of that we need to improve? Pardon?
Just somebody got unmuted first thing.
Oh, thanks. Okay. So when I say I'm going to improve myself, does that mean I'm going to get a new dress? No, I don't need a new dress. I have enough dresses already. Does it mean I'm going to get better at playing tennis?
No.
No. Does it mean I'm going to get a six-pack and big biceps? Not really. Does it mean I'm going to have a nice house and car? Does it mean I'm going to travel more? No. So we got to really work out when we say we got to focus on working on ourselves, improving ourselves, what is this self that I'm working on? Now, people are very, very confused. I'm going to tell you why people are confused. Because they don't know what their self is. How do I know that people don't know what their self is? I know that because people get their self-esteem based on their physical appearance and their material possessions in general. I get my self-esteem based on my physical appearance and my material possessions. So that means people identify their self as their body, their physical appearance, and their material possessions. Because why else would you get your sense of self based on those things unless you think those things define you? So it's a big problem. The biggest problem we face nowadays, and the most important thing people need to learn, is that people have no sense of self. Very, very little sense of self-worth. How about that? Because of social media a lot, and because of, I need recognition. I need you to like my Facebook post and my Instagram and my Snapchat and my WhatsApp and my TikTok and all those things. I need people to recognize me. Now, getting your sense of self based on those things is very, very dangerous. Because firstly, it's relying on external recognition. And secondly, it's external recognition of very superficial values, like your physical appearance and your material possessions. As we said so far, that you don't identify as those things. Those things don't define you. So it means that if you don't have those things, you don't feel good about yourself. And if you do have those things, you'll probably feel a little bit of anxiety trying to keep up those things. So I've got to keep up with other people. I'm always someone who does have material wealth and physical appearance often would develop arrogance. What's the difference between a strong sense of self and arrogance?
Yes, please.
Insecurity?
Great. So basically, arrogance means I need you to think I'm great. I need recognition, which means arrogance is really low self-esteem. Arrogance is low self-esteem. Sorry? Did someone say something now?
No, Rabbi.
Arrogance is related to low self-esteem. Someone who has a very strong sense of self, they don't need other people to keep telling them that they're great. And they don't need to try and look a certain way. I just feel good about myself. So arrogance means I need your recognition, therefore it's low self-esteem. Arrogance and low self-esteem are two sides of the same coin. What we're trying to do is build up a healthy sense of self-respect. So we're going to come back to that. How do you actually build up a healthy sense of self? I feel good about myself. I respect myself. So we're going to talk about those things later. But first we're going to try and do this. When we say I'm really working on myself, if someone says I'm working on myself, I'm looking for myself, I'm working on myself, that doesn't mean they're going to well, maybe there's an aspect of going to the gym, but it doesn't mean they're working on their tennis swing and their finances, and that's not working on yourself. So there are 4 levels of yourself. There are 4 aspects of who you are. Does anyone know what those 4 things are?
Your soul.
Okay, good. I'm going to say the soul's one of them. The soul's the main thing.
Your character traits.
Character traits, good. Anything else? So I'm going to put it like this, a bit easier. Physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. You're a physical being, and you're an emotional being, and you're a mental being. You have emotions, you have feelings, you also have thoughts, which are very interlinked, by the way. In general, our thoughts create our emotions. So if you have good, uplifting thoughts, you feel good. And if you have negative, disempowering thoughts, you feel bad. And spiritual. You're a spiritual being. We say primarily, actually, you are a spiritual being. And that the other 3 are garments of the soul. Here we go. Kabbalah 101. You are a soul. And then the soul comes into a body for however many years. And when it's in a body, it's given thoughts and emotions. And those are the garments of the soul. So when we say we're working on ourselves, it means we're working on these 4 aspects of ourselves. We want all of these to be the most healthy, vital, joyful, refined parts that we can possibly make. That's what it means to work on it. Sorry, was that a question? Or... Okay, so let's break it. Sorry, you had a question?
No, Rabbi.
Okay. Please, if anyone... please, if anyone has any questions, please raise your hand and let me know. So let's start. Let's break it down. So we're going to go through the 4 levels of ourself, and then we're going to go back to having a sense of self, a strong sense of self-respect. So physical. What we're trying to achieve in our life is physical health. We want to be physically healthy. And all things being equal, unless we get a disease or something, that is completely in our hands. It's completely up to us. By the way, you're going to see something beautiful, which is all of these things are in our control. All of these things. So we're looking within ourselves. So for example, physical health really depends on 3 things. Don't put toxic things into your body. That's smoke and alcohol and drugs and whatever thing. Those toxic things, you don't want to be putting them into your body. They might be fun and they might feel nice, but in general, one would imagine that a rational person should take care of themselves, and those things aren't good for you. And whatever, I'm not going to it. We've all had I had a past. I was a human being once upon a time too, you know, as a dance music DJ actually, and did all of the not so healthy things that come along with that lifestyle. But in general, what we want to do, let's say you have a car If you've got a car, you want to put the right fuel into the car. You don't want to put vinegar into your gas tank. So your body, you got to understand that the more healthy your body is, the more vitality you're going to have. The easier it's going to be to get up in the morning, the more energy and strength you're going to have, and the more energy and strength you're going to have to deal with your challenges. If you're feeling very, very tired and very, very sluggish, and then someone says something to you that's insulting, then it's hard to deal with that. But if you're feeling very full of vitality and energy, then you can deal with life in a much better way. So the first thing would be not to put into your body things that are not good for it. The second thing would be to put things into your body that are good for it. There you go. So the Rambam, Maimonides, he has a diet. And there's so many different diets around nowadays. And I actually find that some people, the most health conscious people, are actually quite unhealthy sometimes, because they're like gluten-free, sugar-free, they're getting a bit over the top maybe. So Jewish wisdom about health is always moderation. You got to get the balance. Get the balance. So we say that you should eat healthy food when you're hungry. I know that seems like a crazy idea, but it seems sensible to me, because food is really meant to be the fuel. It's meant to be your fuel. Now, obviously, we want you to enjoy food as well. That's very good. So you can enjoy food, but if it's not healthy for you, to enjoy it rarely. Don't live on your pizza and then your cold pizza for breakfast. We want to try and be putting healthy food into our bodies. And there's so many different diets out there, I guess. So we're generally looking at some protein and some vegetables. And I'm not going to give you some diet advice now. But you want to be putting into your body, after you eat, you want to feel energized. Many people, after they eat, they actually feel tired and sluggish, which means you've eaten either the wrong thing or too much of the right thing. Well, I think our main problem nowadays is we eat too much. And if you stuff your stomach, the Rambam even speaks about this. If you put too much food in your stomach, then it can't get digested properly. It's like if you put too many clothes in the washing machine, then they don't get washed properly. So you don't want to overstuff your plate. And in general, the truth is that you only need to eat however big your stomach is. You got to work out how big your stomach is, but also you don't even want to fill up your stomach. So you want to eat about 3/4 of what your stomach is. Now, I think most of us, most of the time, including me, eat a lot more than we need to eat. And that's why we get tired and maybe unhealthy. So we want to be eating the right amount of the right food. And then the third thing is exercise, some type of exercise. The Rambam also speaks about you should build up a sweat every day, but at least to do 5 minutes of something, of some stretching, of just to get your blood moving, a fast walk or skipping or swimming or something. We're going to try and exercise. So for example, we got elevators in the building. I never use the elevator. And I tell lots of my colleagues, don't use the elevator, run up the stairs. I always run up the stairs, 3 stairs at a time. When I was training in Shaolin, we used to have to hop up 3 stairs at a time and then run down and then hop up 3 stairs at a time on the other leg. And then the master would still hit us with the bamboo stick on the back of our leg, which is great. So you don't have to do that. But, you know, the only thing he could say in English was no pain, no gain. And if he wasn't a Shaolin master, I would have beaten him up because he was a horrible little man. But he was a Shaolin master, so I couldn't beat him up. Anyway, it's a different story. So it's actually a mitzvah from the Torah to look after your physical health. Now, I think there are lots of religious Jews who overlooked that one at some point, but it is in the Torah that we got to try and look after our physical health. So that's it. 3 things. Don't put in things that damage you. Do put in things that energize you, and do some exercise. Very easy. Number 2, second level, emotional balance. We want to be achieving emotional balance. I think we mentioned this last week, by the way, that your whole experience of life is your emotions. Your emotions, your thoughts and your emotions, they make your experience of life. So if your thoughts and your emotions are healthy, and positive, then you're going to have a good life. So we've got to really work on these two areas, thoughts and emotions. So what we want to achieve in life is emotional balance. Emotional balance. Now it's very hard to have emotional balance. There are two extremes of emotional imbalance. On one side is someone who is completely overwhelmed and controlled by their emotions. Something bad happens and they just can't deal with it, and they make their decisions based on their emotions, and that often involves a whole tub of Ben & Jerry's or a joint or something. That I had a student who came to Aish, and he was very, very new to Judaism. Really, this was his first experience of Judaism. He was a Jew, but no background. And he loved it. He was here for 2 weeks and he was growing and learning, and it was amazing. After 2 weeks, he said to me, Rabbi, I'm very homesick. I don't know life here. I don't know the songs. It's very difficult for me. I'm really enjoying myself, but I just, I miss being at home. It's more comfortable. So I said, okay, well, just stay in touch. I'll be here for you whenever you need it. And he said, I just want you to know, though, my home life is very abusive. My mother's an alcoholic and she beats me basically. And my friends and I, we basically sit around smoking weed and playing video games. So I know it's a very, very unhealthy environment for me, but I'm used to it and I'm comfortable with it. So, I'm homesick and I'm going to go home. So I said to him, I didn't say you shouldn't be homesick. I acknowledged his feelings. I said, I know you're homesick, but do you have to go home just because you are homesick? Very important idea. Do you have to go just because you feel homesick? Do you have to make your decisions based on how you feel? I'm going to say that's not emotionally balanced thing to do, because you should make your decisions based on your seichel, on your intellect. Is that actually the right decision? So for most people, it's like, I don't care what's the right decision. I care what I feel, and I'm just going to do what I feel, which is awful, by the way, in relationships. That's why relationships often don't work, is because people feel like upset, so they feel like shouting, so they shout. I want to be authentic with my feelings, so I'm going to shout at you. That's an awful way to have a relationship. You have to have some self-control and say, is this the right thing to do? To shout at my wife, to shout at my partner. It's definitely not the right thing to do. So you have to calm down before you speak. Then never speak when you're upset. So I said to him, do you think you could still feel homesick? I didn't say stop feeling homesick, but just stay in yeshiva for a while, even though you feel homesick. And he said, yeah, he really got it, and he did. He stayed for about 2 more weeks, and then he went home to get beaten up by his mum and smoke weed with friends. But at least he had 2 more weeks of growth, personal growth, and it really helped him in his life. So that's one side of emotional balance, letting your emotions lead the way, and often just drowning in them and not being able to have a time limit. So it's very important to acknowledge your feelings. So the other side of emotional imbalance is when you're completely cut off from your feelings and you completely repress them. It's called being an English man. I know that. I am one of them. And when you're an English man, you have to play football, soccer, man, and you have to play football and you're not allowed to cry, and you got to drink beer, and you got to fight people if they annoy you with a beer bottle. So that's it. And God forbid you should actually express any depth of emotion or any vulnerability. God forbid. So that is the other extreme. By the way, when I was a Buddhist for a while, I lived in Asia for 6 years. So too, the Buddhists are very, very detached from emotion. They basically leveled out. They never get overly happy. You never go to a Buddhist temple and see the monks like holding hands and dancing around. You don't see that. You see that in yeshiva a lot. But the Buddhist monks, they're very calm. They're very calm, but they say attachment causes suffering. We're going to talk about this, the difference between pain and suffering. So they basically leveled out emotionally. So that's also not healthy. It's not healthy to not have emotions. Actually, because I was a Buddhist for so many years, I was very good at controlling my emotions until I got married. my wife was like, I don't want to be married to a robot. I want to be married to a human being. So now I pretend that I have emotions. Whenever she leads me to have emotion, I'm like, I feel so upset by this. And she goes, that's so beautiful that you're in touch with your emotion. I'm like, I know. No, I'm trying to find my emotions somewhere in there. But I went from being an English man to a Buddhist monk, and that's a nightmare for your emotions. So why do many people not feel their emotions at all? Because they're painful, and we don't want to feel pain. And something happened when we were young, and we got hurt, and we got insulted, or we got abused. Something happened to us that caused us pain. And so now we don't want pain anymore, so we just cut off our emotions. Just like, it's okay. So that's not emotionally balanced either. So the definition of emotional balance is being open and vulnerable to feeling your pain, to feeling your emotions, but then not being overwhelmed and controlled by that. To be able to also have an intellectual thing saying, okay, this is how I feel, but I'm going to make my decisions still based on what's the right thing to do. It also means being able to choose which emotion is appropriate, which is actually hard. So for example, if you're very worried about paying your rent, but then your best friend's getting married, you can't be at the wedding worrying about your rent. You have to be able to put that emotion to the side, not repress it, not ignore it, but just say, okay, I'll come back to you. So you're going to choose when and how much you're going to involve yourself in that emotion in a healthy way. So that's called emotional balance, being able to fully experience and acknowledge, I feel this way, but then not let that dictate and define your reality and your decisions. So for example, when someone dies in Jewish practice, when someone dies, you could do one of two things. You could just say, okay, it's all for the best. He's gone to a better place. He had a great life, which is completely denying and repressing your emotions. Or you could just get completely depressed for a long time, and it's not fair, and why did this happen, and I miss them so much. So those are the two extremes. So Jewish wisdom says, no, when someone dies, we sit shiva. We have 7 days of intense mourning. We sit on the floor, and we cover the mirrors, and we talk about the person, and we cry, and we don't try and say, even though we know it's all for the best, ultimately, we don't just blow it away and say it's all for the best. We sit and we cry and we face our pain. But then after 7 days, we get up from the floor and we uncover the mirrors and we go about life. But we have a 30-day period of also a level of mourning, a lesser intensity, but it's another 30 days of mourning. And then for 11 months after that, we're saying Kaddish. We're saying a special prayer for the deceased person. That's called emotional intelligence. That's called being intelligent with your emotions. We always have to have the balance between our intellect and our emotions. So emotional intelligence means I'm going to be open to feel emotions, but process them. That's it. I'm going to experience them and process them in a mindful and conscious way. Okay, we got that. Are there any questions so far? Yeah. Okay, great. By the way, when it comes to real pain, if you're in real pain, not to avoid the pain, not to deny the pain, to feel the pain and to cry, but then at some point to say, what am I going to do with my pain? Am I going to be a victim to my pain, or am I going to use it? There you go, my Chinese master, no pain, no gain. So I'm actually am I going to use my pain to help other people who are going through the same thing? So I actually have a student here now, and he was really bullied when he was in school. And he's obviously has some psychological effect from that, but he's now a very kind person. Firstly, he sees what bullies can do to other people. And when he gets more empowered, he's going to go back into the school system, and he wants to set up an organization to support people being bullied. And by the way, to support bullies, because you got to understand that anyone who is a bully, that's because they have their own pain. No one becomes a bully unless they have pain. Happy people are nice people. Happy people are nice to other people. So if there's anyone who's putting anyone down, it's from their own lacking and their own pain. So they need a lot of healing as well. Bullies need healing, and the victims of bullying need healing. So this boy, because he went through that experience, he's going to take his pain and turn it into purpose. I'm going to take my pain and make purpose out of it. I'm going to do something with this. So recovering alcoholic, they're the best person to help alcoholics. So whatever your area of pain in your life is, you can still feel your pain, but then say, what am I going to do with the pain? I'm going to use my pain to help other people. And that will make your pain less meaningless. It will give some meaning to your pain. So that's how we deal with pain in a healthy way. Then we have a higher level, the higher level, which is mental. Mental. So you want physical health, and you want emotional balance, and you want mental strength. Mental strength. Now, what is mental strength? Mental strength, and it's the most important thing in your life, because your whole experience of life is whatever's going on in your mind. Mental strength means the ability to choose what thoughts you are making significant, to choose what thoughts are being in your consciousness. So at this point we have to define what makes something positive and what makes something negative. When it comes to thoughts and emotions, how do you define positive ones and negative ones? What makes a thought positive or negative?
If it evokes good emotions, then it's positive. If it evokes bad emotions, then it's negative.
Okay, that's right. Exactly. How about this one? What about sadness? Is sadness positive or negative?
Negative.
Depends.
I'm going to say it depends. And this is, so I want to clarify it more. Positive means it serves a purpose. It serves a purpose. It's getting me somewhere. It's helping me process. It's helping me become greater. It's helping me move on. Negative means it's not serving any purpose. It doesn't do anything. It's not changing anything. So sadness is actually a very, very positive emotion to the right degree. For example, we gave the example of when someone dies. It's very positive to feel your sadness. Once sadness turns into depression, which means I have no will, I don't want to get out of bed, I don't want to eat, I don't want to stay, I just can't do anything. That's when it's gone too far and it's not helping you move on. It's not helping you become greater. But sadness, to some degree, is a positive emotion. We're meant to feel it. It's a healthy emotion to feel. We even have a day, Tisha B'Av, we have a day in the year where you're meant to feel sad. You're meant to feel sad. So even though it's a painful feeling, I still call it a positive emotion because it's helping you process and move on. So a thought that is helping you grow and be, in general, by the way, that was an extreme example, but in general, you're right. Positive means it makes you feel good, and negative and improve yourself and improve the world. And negative means it's not doing that. It's serving a purpose. Remember when I had a baby born 3 months early, and he was in hospital, he was in an incubator, in a respirator. And my wife said to me, maybe I could have looked after myself better whilst I was pregnant, and then the baby wouldn't have been born early. Now, my wife is a yoga teacher and an energy healer and an Ayurvedic cook, and she never smokes, and she drinks a little bit of wine on Shabbat. No one could ever look after themselves better than my wife. Baruch Hashem. So that thought wasn't even true. But let's say it was true. After you have that one thought, all you have to say is, okay, I made a mistake and I'll do better next time. I'll look after myself better next time. To have that thought over and over again, oh, if only I'd looked after most if only thoughts, by the way, fall into this category. If only I'd done that, if only I'd done that. So the truth is you didn't, and regretting it and beating yourself up for it never serves a purpose. There's no purpose to beating yourself up. Never, ever, ever, ever beat yourself up. It's not kosher. Don't eat pig. Don't drive on Shabbat. Don't beat yourself. They're all not kosher. So as soon as you see your mind putting you down, what's wrong with me? What an idiot. Why did I do that? How could you've got to be able to stop and say, hold on. These thoughts are not serving any purpose. I'm going to choose to let go of them. Now, that's not easy to do. I'm going to hopefully teach you some tools in order to do that. But the first thing is to identify that these thoughts aren't good for you. The first thing. So that's mental strength. Mental strength meaning I'm going to I'm going to manage what thoughts I'm putting in my consciousness and which ones I'm making very significant. And the ones that don't serve a purpose and the ones that make me feel bad, then I'm going to let them go. I'm just going to say, you know what? I'm not going to do that now. I don't know if I said to you last week, imagine you had a friend who spoke to you how you often speak to yourself. So how long would you let them be your friend? So I punched them after 10 seconds. What do you mean? Why are you being so horrible to me? So we got to start learning, and I'll teach you some tools for this, but we got to start learning to manage what thoughts we're going to make our reality. For example, if you have an anxious thought, you can make it very significant and say, yes, it is going to happen, and pile anxiety upon anxiety. Or you could just acknowledge it and say, wow, that was an anxious thought. That's it. Don't have to give it energy. The thought will naturally pass unless you give it energy. Once again, easier said than done, which is my least favorite phrase in the English language. Because of course it's easier said than done. Anything great is easier said than done. So it's just an excuse. So yes, it is easier said than done, but it's better done than said. Because if you just say it and don't do it, you won't get anywhere. I amuse myself, you might have noticed. So fine. So there we go. We got physical health, and we got emotional balance, and we got mental strength. By the way, you can be mentally strong. Oh, you have a question?
What happens if someone's going through, having a physical, ailment or something that's not in their control?
I don't know if I showed you this last week. My father has pancreatic cancer, and it spread to his liver and his lungs and his abdomen and his blood. And it just spread to his spine. So he was in hospital for a week. And basically they said, if it pushes on your spinal cord in the wrong way, you could be paralyzed. Your legs could be paralyzed. And he was a very fit, healthy, he used to go hiking with my mum all the time. Now he has to walk with a walker. And I don't know if you can see this, they fitted this full body brace now. And it's around his neck, around his body. And he literally, 4 months ago, he was hiking with my mum, and now they have a chair lift in the house. And he was diagnosed 3 years ago and given about 3 or 4 months to live, by the way. And he's still alive, Baruch Hashem. And so he's just been fitted with this full body, very, very uncomfortable full body brace. Oh, it's gone. So my mum sent me this video the other day, just after he got the brace fitted.
Oh, wow. Oh my goodness.
I think it's Frank Sinatra or something. But anyway, so I think the answer to your question is your attitude. What's your attitude? What's he going to do? He can be a victim. He would be very justified in sitting in his bed and being depressed right now and saying it's not fair and it's painful. But he's not. He's choosing. This is called mental strength. He's choosing to say, okay, it is bad, but I appreciate, he's telling me how much he appreciates my mum. My mum's looking after him the whole time. So he could focus on, he's got plenty of things to complain about, but he doesn't. He focuses on the good things rather. And so he can sing, and it's very uncomfortable. And so once again, easier said than done. But if you get what I'm trying to give to you, I'm trying to give to you that we can always be a victim to our external circumstances. You can always justifiably be a victim and say, it's because of my job, it's because of my boss, it's because of my childhood, it's because I don't have this. You could do that and you'd be justified and you'll be right. But it doesn't serve a purpose. So you at some point in your life have to decide, I'm going to choose to look at the good. You're going to choose to have a positive attitude no matter what. So you can have someone who has cancer and is having a good life because they have a positive attitude. And you can have someone who just won the lottery and they have everything they want and have a bad life because they have a bad attitude, and they're like, now they worry about someone stealing their car, and their friends aren't really their friends because they're just being their friends because they want their money or whatever. So once you can flip your whole being away from external world into I get to control my internal world, and this is very important to do because you can't control the external world really. So you need to control your internal world, and that you can do. Even though it's hard to do, you can do. That's up to you to do. And this is called being great. This is called improving it. You want to improve yourself? Improving yourself means I'll deal with it, God forbid, if something happens. I'm also going to dance to Frank Sinatra. He's got some moves, my dad, you know? Tell you that much. Yeah, question?
Yeah, I remember when I was in school and I didn't study for an exam, and the exam was coming up, and I'd say, okay, you're happy yourself, you didn't study, so you cram all night long, you have 24 hours in your life and go on. I have a granddaughter who, before an exam, that anxiety that comes on, it's like you're saying, yes, I'll have anxiety, and you think it's going to pass, but in a way you can't reach them while they're in that anxiety. There's nothing I could say. I mean, it's like almost like there's nothing I could say or do till the exam is over.
Yeah.
Until then, it's very difficult, like I don't know how to reach them even, you know, or to get through, because it's like as if their mental abilities are on hold, like the emotional abilities are on hold to reach them.
And once the exam is over, then they have anxiety until they get the result.
Right.
And then the result.
And I'm sitting there like, you know what?
Okay. The truth is, with real anxiety, you can't do what I just said. You can't control your mind. So what do you do at that point? And you got to teach her to do this. And we all got to learn to do this. At that point, when you're facing real anxiety, you have to ground yourself in your physicality. What does that mean? It means you have to put your hand on your heart, and you have to, for example, smell lavender oil, essential oils. Lavender oil is very calming. Or you have to have a piece of chocolate. Calm your, obviously not a whole tub of Ben and Jerry's, but a piece of chocolate. Or you need to listen to music, soft, calming music. By the way, you should do all three. You should do all three. That would be the most healthy. And then you should say in your mind, I'm sure it's going to be okay. And then your whole system will be like, no, it's not going to be okay. And then when that happens, you just got to breathe very deeply and say, I'm sure it's going to be okay. However, if someone has actual trauma, even that doesn't work necessarily. Trauma is different. Trauma actually got into your brain. So how do you know if you have, there's difference between deep wounding, someone who's very, very wounded, and someone who actually has trauma. Trauma shows in, for example, they might pee themselves in a certain situation. Someone who's wounded wouldn't do that. They get triggered, but trauma, they'd have a physical shaking reaction or something like that. For that, you need special therapy. There's different therapies for that. Eye movement therapy or shaking. There's special trauma therapy that they'd need to go through at that point. But, sorry, can you still hear me? It says the internet is... I'm still with you?
Yeah.
Okay, Raksha. So even those people would still need to have these calming physical things just to bring yourself into your thing. I'm going to try and read all these questions that have come up. I didn't see them. Here we go. Some people feel, imagine the worst possible scenario to happen, and you can't go anywhere but up. Good. So I actually have a game called The Worst Possible Scenario. The worst possible scenario game is what would really happen if you think about it. Now that we're talking about worrying, wasn't the subject, but it's good that we should talk about it. Everything you've ever worried about in your whole life. Everything you've ever worried about in your whole life. Either A, didn't happen. And I'd say that's probably about 90% of things that you worried about. You're worried you'd miss the bus. You didn't miss the bus. You'd worried you'd mess up your speech. You didn't mess up your speech. Yes, EFT. Whatever. Most things that you ever worry about, it didn't happen. Second category, B. It did happen, but it actually wasn't as bad as you thought it would be. So you messed up your speech, but okay, so it didn't matter so much, or you missed the bus, so you got the next bus, or whatever. C. It did happen, and it was bad. But you're dealing with it. Might be you might need therapy and things, but you're dealing with it. And if you have a positive attitude and a good therapist and support, you could actually grow from it. You can use your pain and grow from it. I know that's true because you're all sitting here now, and you all seem generally somewhat functional. I don't know you though. I'm sitting 10,000 miles away, but from here you seem to be okay for now. But maybe that's because you had coffee and a bagel. And everyone feels okay once you had a coffee and a bagel. So if you think about this, everything you've ever worried about didn't happen, happened but wasn't so bad, happened was so bad, but you're still in the game, basically. It takes away a lot of the stress, even though it's a mental thing. That you can, every time you worry about something, you can say to yourself, I'm sure it's going to be okay. And you're not deluding yourself because I've just shown you that it will be okay in one of three ways. It won't happen, it will happen, it won't be so bad, or it will happen so bad. And if you've got support and positivity, you'll grow from it. So to be able to say that to yourself, I'm sure it will be okay, and not be lying to yourself because you've survived this far, that's very, very comforting. And then you can say, well, what's the worst case scenario? And it's got to be a real worst case scenario. If you're going to go and give a speech, what's the worst case scenario? So you get very embarrassed and you got food in your beard and you, I don't know, burp. So what's the worst case scenario? So you could be really embarrassed. That's the worst case scenario. So what would you do? So you'd be really embarrassed, and then you go home and then you'd give a speech 3 months later called How to Deal with Your Most Embarrassing Moment. You deal with it. And it's got to be an honest worst case scenario. You can't be like, and then I'll be kidnapped by 10 terrorists and put it as, that's not a reasonable worst case scenario. Sorry, are we doing 45 minutes or we got a bit more time?
We have a little more
More
time.
time, yeah.
Okay. So fine. So that's it's a process to be able to learn the tools in order to do that. But first, to at least become aware that you can control your thoughts and that any anxiety you could deal with what is going to happen. The final level is spiritual awareness. Now, by the way, everything I've said so far, even an atheist, I could have given this class to atheists. Physical, emotional, and mental. They also believe you're physical, emotional, and mental, but we believe that really you're a spiritual being. And Jewish spirituality, so is the second question what you responded leaning towards the first? I'm not sure I understand that. I'm just gonna carry on and then we'll break it down. Break it down, Bezat Hashem. So fine. Spiritual awareness in Judaism. What is spirituality in Judaism? Spirituality doesn't mean smoking weed on the beach at sunset and doing yoga, even though that might be very pleasant. That's not Jewish spirituality. What is Jewish spirituality? Jewish spirituality means experiencing your soul, no less than actually identifying as, manifesting, and actually having an experience of spirituality. A spiritual experience means beyond your thoughts. Even your thoughts are within this time-space continuum, but your neshama, your soul, is beyond time and space. That's being able to actually tap into experiencing your neshama, which you can only really do through meditation and mitzvahs. Doing mitzvahs consciously, which empowers your spirituality, and then doing meditation in order to calm your mind, to reveal your spirit, your soul. That's how you're going to have true Jewish spirituality. And I say spiritual awareness and not spiritual connection, because you're always spiritually connected. You are a soul. You are spiritually connected. You are healthy. You are happy. You are connected. You're You're perfect, you're full of love. That is your essential nature. But we just don't ever get to experience, very rarely get to experience our essential nature because our mind is in the way the whole time. I'm going to sneeze. Obviously, I'm not going to sneeze now. I'm just going to need to sneeze. Bless you, children.
Amen.
So, we're going to have to tap into our souls. So maybe next week, we'll talk about how do you actually get a true sense of self and self-respect, and how do you actually start trying to experience true spirituality, which is a connection to your higher self. Okay, so I think we'll finish here if there are any questions.
Questions, anyone? Questions?
Yes.
I don't know, we can see you, you might not.
I have a
No,
question.
There's a
right
question.
on the edge,
There's a
yeah.
question.
I have a question. When you talk about, let's say like self-forgiveness, like where does that fall? Does that fall in by the thoughts of like beating yourself up? Like is that?
Yeah.
That?
Someone actually came to me the other day and she said, I got angry with I shouted at my son, so or whatever she did, and she said, I don't know how to forgive myself. I just can't forgive myself. So I said to her, are you ready? I'm going to teach you the secret of forgiving yourself. She's like, okay. And I said, forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. You're a human being. You made a mistake, no? Forgive yourself. Would you forgive someone else if they shouted at you? Eventually you would. So it's really starting to choose the self-compassionate thoughts. You made a mistake, no? What's worse than making a mistake is beating yourself up about that mistake. So we have something in Judaism called tshuva. Tshuva means I can rectify the mistake. I can do something about it. I'm not defining myself by my mistakes. Many people come up to me and say, I don't like myself. And I say, why? Because I have these negative character traits. And I say to them, but your negative character traits don't define you. When your children have negative character traits, you don't hate your children. So you shouldn't hate yourself for them. You should just work on them, try and improve them. So forgiveness comes from understanding that those things don't define you and it was a mistake, and that you can improve yourself and work on that. So it means just let go. Let go of those negative thoughts. I'm not good. What's wrong with me? Why did I do that? I let myself down. Those thoughts don't serve any purpose. To replace them with thoughts like, I'm a human being, I made a mistake, I'm going to improve. That's it. Not easy to do that, by the way, because those negative thoughts are very strong. But once you start building up more mental strength and peace of mind, you'll be able to deal with those in a healthier way. And by the way, Juliana, to answer your question, I understood what it is now, is that let's say you're having these thoughts over and over and over again. The way to start dealing with that, and it's going to be a process, is to just notice when you're doing it and say, whoa, I'm going down that road again, and it's not healthy for me. And just to be aware, what would happen, for example, if you got on the wrong bus? You got on the wrong bus. What would you do about that? What could you do about being on the wrong bus? The answer is get off the bus. Get off that bus. So once you notice you're on the wrong mental bus, you've got to say, whoa, okay, hold on. I'm going down the wrong bus again. Get off the bus. Breathe deeply and replace it with something positive. Okay, I made a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. Or, okay, I'll be able to improve. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. That's the wrong bus. Realize you're on the wrong bus and change it to say, you know what? Everyone's good enough. I'm a good person. I'm trying. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying. So it's to notice when you're on the wrong bus, get off the bus. So, for example, you have that hypothetical situation. I'm going to fail my exam, and then I'll never get a job, and then I'll be living under a bridge with a bottle of vodka in my own vomit. And, so as soon as you notice you're on that bus, you've got to stop yourself. And actually, by the way, you should smile. You should smile and say, whoa. That's how you beat a bully, by the way. You beat a bully by smiling at it. You smile and breathe very deeply and say, okay, I'm sure it's going to be okay. You're very unlikely, even if you fail your exam, that you're going to end up under a bridge with vomit coming out of your nose. Especially now that you know me, You call me, I'll give you somewhere to live for a little bit until I kick you out my house. But so as soon as you can identify, whoa, I'm going on those thoughts again, then you can smile and say, no, not doing that anymore. And that's how you start beating the bully that's living in your head. Yafi, Bezrais Hashem, my email, I'm going to put my email address here. Oh, that just went, it didn't go to everyone. Let's get my email address to everyone. There we go. Okay. I love
Any
you.
questions?
Do you want to email?
I'm gonna call the second.
Actually, question.
Okay.
Wanna go
Yeah.
first?
No, I'm just asking, you're talking about how we can change it, but how, if there's a bully, what to do. How do you make them aware that they're on the wrong bus, or that the bully is doing bullying? How do we get them to recognize it? You're talking about ourselves, and we're willing to go through the transformation to work on ourselves. But what do you do for people who don't see it?
First, you have to validate and acknowledge how they feel. Never, ever, ever, ever say to someone, you shouldn't feel like this. It's okay. There's plenty more fish in the sea. Don't ever say something like that to anyone. You validate their emotions, say, you know what, I hear this, I see this is really hard. And then you can say, I actually remember when I was in a similar situation as well. And I always make up that I'm in these situations, even though I wasn't. My kids must think that every bad thing that ever happened to them in their life also happened to me. Everything. I'm like, yeah, I remember when I was your age, that happened to me. So rather than giving them advice directly, you can say, I remember I had a friend who that happened to them, and they actually told me that they tried this. Maybe that would work for you. Don't know that. Because when people aren't open to hearing it, but everyone wants to feel happy. So once they realize that their mental state is making them not feel happy, most people are open to hearing some advice as long as it doesn't feel like you're preaching to them. So if you can bring them in by acknowledging their emotions, maybe even relating to them that you've had a similar thing or a friend with a similar thing, and then say, this is what worked for them, maybe you can try it. That would be the most healthy way to go about it.
Thank you.
I have a question also.
Yep.
Which one of these four aspects of yourself, which one of them come first? Like, do you feel an emotion first, or do you have a thought first, and then like?
The truth is, in general, thoughts create emotions. Thought creates emotion, even if it's a subconscious thought. You saw something, it brought up a memory, even though you weren't aware of it, and that created an emotion. But then once you have an emotion, once you feel down, that emotion is going to then create more negative thoughts. That's why people get hangry. Sometimes all you need to do is have something to eat. But the truth is they all work together. They come hand in hand. But the key to everything is going to be mental strength. So start dealing with your thoughts. That's the key to improve your emotions and your physicality. But sometimes when you just can't, when you're so triggered, that's when you have to come into physicality with a piece of chocolate or a nice music or a lavender oil. So they really go together. You got to know which one to use when. I can show you the world.
Just let us have another question if anyone's got one.
Yafi.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. I'll see you next week.
Okay, thank you everyone who came on Zoom. God willing, next week will be part 3 of the series.
Thank you.
Thank you.